What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. It is officially time to get into our March Madness predictions video here. Yep, the bracket was revealed. There are some interesting seedings in this bracket, but it's March Madness. I am excited as ever, as always, to get into these predictions. So let's just dive right into this here. And that's going to start out with the first matchup between UConn and Stetson. I do have UConn moving on in that game. Florida Atlantic Northwestern. I think Florida Atlantic is too high at an 8 seed. Remember last year they were the 9 seed and went on the run to the Final Four. But I am going to go with Northwestern. Bo Bowie, or however his name is, on Northwestern's a very good player. I think Florida Atlantic's a team that hasn't been the best over the past couple of months. And I like Northwestern to pull off the win. Then we got San Diego State as a 5 seed. I do have them beating UAB. UAB looked very impressive today in their American Conference tournament. I think San Diego State's a very solid team. I don't see them getting upset this early in this tournament, though. Then we do have Auburn. I think Auburn is very underseeded at a 4 seed. They, I think, will beat Yale, who's a good team, with that crazy game today versus Brown. But I don't think that Yale has enough in that game. All right, but then BYU Duquesne. As a BYU fan, very frustrated that we don't get the 5 seed and be able to play in Salt Lake. So I am going to the Salt Lake games, by the way. But yeah, I'm disappointed in that, so I'll have to watch this game while I'm at it. I don't think Duquesne is good enough to beat BYU. BYU is a very interesting team. I've watched this team all season. They can go on a run, but they can also lose if they're not hitting their shots. I think they just got their cold game out of the way versus Texas Tech. I expect them to get hot. Mark Pope will come up with a good game plan. I think BYU beats a solid Duquesne team who was also red hot coming into this. But then Illinois Morehead State, Illinois just winning against Wisconsin, the Big Ten. I do have 3-seeded Illinois winning it, beating Morehead State. 7-seed Washington State taking on Drake. Give me the 10-seeded Drake Bulldogs in that one. Not really a believer in Washington State this year. And then I do have Iowa State beating South Dakota State. So just one upset. Well, I guess the 9/8. Not the craziest region, but just you wait, guys. I have some upsets in store here. We got Houston taking on Longwood. Give me Houston in that one. Pretty straightforward pick there. Nebraska, Texas A&M is a very interesting matchup. Both these teams are playing great basketball at this time. This is a tough one. I mean, I like Texas A&M a lot. They just proved they could be one of the best teams in the country in Kentucky. This one's I think I'm gonna go with I'm gonna pull up this icon here. We're gonna take a look because these 8 versus 9s can obviously go either way. Nebraska does average more points per game. Texas A&M is a hotter team right now. Tumanga is a great player, so is Wade Taylor. It looks like Nebraska's dealing with some injuries. I am going to go with Texas A&M here. I'm going to slightly give this to the 9 seed here, just mainly based on gut feeling. Nebraska, tremendous season. I think they do deserve to win it, but I am going to give this one to the 9 seed Texas A&M. All right, but then we have Wisconsin taking on James Madison. This is going to be my first big-time upset. I'm going to go with James Madison. No discredit to Wisconsin, playing great today versus Illinois. They just beat Purdue. They're red hot right now. But they're playing a very good team. I think James Madison also matches up well. James Madison is even hotter than Wisconsin. And they also beat Michigan State earlier this year. Wisconsin, I'm not forgetting their stretch in February as well, though, where they had a lot of rough losses. That's why I do have the Dukes of James Madison winning this one and advancing on. All right, but then Duke, Vermont. And this is one where I really want to go with a 13-4 upset here. I am going to slightly give this one to the Blue Devils. Vermont's a great team. They've dominated their American East Conference, but I do believe this Duke Blue Devils team is slightly better. I think they'll respond after their loss to who did they lose to? They lost to it was Syracuse, I believe, right? Or someone like that. No. NC State. They lost NC State, yeah. I think Duke will respond from that. Vermont, though, keep an eye out for that 13-4. All right, Texas Tech, NC State. This is going to be a very popular upset. I do have Texas Tech winning it, though. You know, Texas Tech's a team that, coming into this tournament, is that a team that dominated my BYU Cougars. They got really solid guard play. Weren't really expected to do much this year, but have played great basketball. NC State obviously is red hot coming into their ACC or winning their ACC tournament. But I think that their run will come to an end. Texas Tech is a great team. It's just a different animal when you have to play these Big 12 teams. So I do have 6 seed Texas Tech, who I think should deserve to be a 5 seed. I think the committee got a lot of these 6 and 5s mixed up here. Also, Kentucky, Oakland. Don't believe Kentucky deserves the 3. I think that Auburn deserved it much more, especially winning their conference. I don't really get why Kentucky's above them. But I do have Kentucky beating Oakland in that game. Florida versus Boise State or Colorado. I do believe that Colorado and Boise State's a great matchup. I would have to go with Colorado in that one. Florida, though, I'm still a big-time believer in. I know that they lost to Auburn, but Auburn's a great team. I mean, that's no discredit to Florida. So I do have 7 seed Florida winning it. And then we have Marquette beating Western Kentucky. So not as many upsets as you might anticipate from these, but let's go down here to the Midwest region where Purdue will lose. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully Purdue will learn from their loss last time and beat Montana State or Grambling State. Either of those teams could upset Purdue. I mean, we know the history of Purdue, but I'm not going to fall into that. I'm going to go with Purdue here, winning it. Then we have a very intriguing matchup between Utah State and TCU. I think Utah State is probably the team that got the most robbed here. As an 8 seed, they were number 1 in the Mountain West. I don't really get this, but they got to play a good 9 seed and TCU team. This is a tough matchup for Utah State here. I do believe in the 9 seed TCU. Honestly, they're a great team. Lost to Houston in their Big 12 tournament, but did beat Oklahoma. You look at TCU. They're a very solid team. I think they could go on a run here. Utah State, I think, just gets a tough draw. I think TCU also matches up well versus Utah State. So I am going to go with another 9 seed. That's all of my picks for 9s right now. All right, but then Gonzaga versus McNeese. I'm going to go with another 12/5. Does Gonzaga really deserve to be this high? I do not think so. Give me McNeese State, a 30-win team at this point, just kind of cruising their way through their entire conference. McNeese is a very good team, coached by the former LSU coach. Gonzaga, obviously, you can't count out Mark Few's squad, but McNeese State, man, they, I think, match up well versus Gonzaga. I will be at this game, and I will be expecting a 12/5 upset, as well as a 13/4. I'm going with Samford upsetting Kansas. Obviously, Kansas, resting Hunter Dickinson and one of their other star players that's slipping my mind right now, but in their Big 12 championship, but that's no excuse to go out and lose to a Cincinnati team by 20. Kansas has lost the 4 of the last 5 games, I believe. I mean, just not playing winning basketball at this time here. Samford is a very good 13 seed. I do believe that they upset the Jayhawks, who are just a team that I'm not high on. And this is why I don't want to go with, I don't think we're going to see both of these 13 seeds winning. Originally, when I saw Vermont facing Duke, I'm like, that's an upset right there. I'm going with Vermont. But I just can't see, like I said, 2 13 seeds beating 4 seeds. I know that's a little bit like statistically, I guess, if speaking, by just like playing the game of statistics, but it just probably won't happen. I like Samford's chance more than Vermont's. Both those teams are great teams, though. But give me Samford, who I think probably deserve to be a 12 seed over UAB. I mean, it's tight, though. All right, anyway, we got Samford in the upset over Kansas. So I do expect a 12 versus a 13 seed matchup right there in the round of 32. All right, South Carolina, Oregon, 6 versus an 11 seed. Give me South Carolina. I'm still a firm believer in South Carolina. I know Oregon goes on a run in the Pac-12 tournament, wins it, but I'm going to go with South Carolina, a very high-scoring team that I think will win that one. But I could very much see the upset. I like a lot of these 11 seeds here. But then Creighton versus Akron. Watch out for Akron to maybe pull off a crazy upset, but the Blue Jays, they're just too good. I do have Creighton winning it. Texas versus Virginia, Colorado State. Interesting matchup between those two. Honestly, I don't see either of those beating Texas out of the Big 12. Kind of giving a lot of these Big 12 teams, benefit of the doubt coming into this tournament. I'm just a believer in the Big 12 here, besides like Kansas, obviously. But give me, Texas beating them. And then Tennessee versus 15 St. Peter's. St. Peter's upset Kentucky a couple years ago, obviously, as a 15 seed. Obviously, it's a whole different squad, though. This time against Dalton Knet and Tennessee. I got the Volunteers winning it. All right, so getting some more upsets here. So don't be commenting that I'm a chalky guy in the comments. But then North Carolina versus Howard/Wagner. I got North Carolina winning that game. And then Michigan State, Mississippi State, another interesting battle. I do have at least one 8 seed winning here. Give me Mississippi State out of the SEC. Obviously, beating Tennessee was a huge win for them to boost their resume. Michigan State, you can't ever count out Tom Izzo. Honestly, I could see Michigan State just figuring things out and going on a run here, even beating North Carolina, but I don't see it happening over a good Mississippi State team. Give me the Bulldogs. But then St. Mary's versus Grand Canyon, 5 versus a 12. Another potential upset for these 12 seeds, but I do have St. Mary's here. St. Mary's has had a tremendous play in the West Coast Conference. I think it'll be too much for Grand Canyon, but another great 12 versus 5 matchup. Alabama's another iffy 4 seed for me, but I do have them pulling off the win over the 13 seed in Charleston in that game. Alabama their offense will be too much for Charleston, in my opinion. Then Clemson versus New Mexico. We're going to go with an 11 over 6 here with New Mexico. I can see a lot of these 11 seeds winning. I'm most confident, though, in New Mexico here, who's a great 11 seed, going on a run in their Mountain West Conference, obviously, winning it all. And, New Mexico is red hot. I think, according to the committee, they probably would have missed out on the entire tournament if they didn't win the Mountain West, which is pretty crazy to me. But New Mexico, they deserve it. Give me them to move on. And then Baylor versus Colgate. Colgate obviously continues to make the tournament. This year, I don't think they get the upset that they're looking for. Give me the Baylor Bears. Dayton, Nevada, I'm going to go with a 10 over 7 here. I just don't see the hype in Dayton being a 7 seed here. They're a team that's sputtering coming into this, losing some critical games. I don't like Dayton in that game. And then Arizona versus Long Beach State. Give me Arizona. All right. Let's just stay in the West region. With North Carolina, Mississippi State, I think North Carolina will win it. Potential upset, I think that's probably the best, spoiler alert, the best chance for a one seed to fall in the round of 32, but I do have North Carolina winning it. Then we got St. Mary's, Alabama. Offense versus defense. I'm going to go with defense in this matchup. I think that St. Mary's will be able to slow down this game against Alabama. And Alabama's defense is very, very bad. I think St. Mary's offense is better than Alabama's defenses, which St. Mary's offense is the weak point of the team, and Alabama's defense is the weak point of Alabama's team. I like St. Mary's to move on to the Sweet 16. Baylor, New Mexico. New Mexico is a potential 11 seed that could upset Baylor, but I'm still a big-time believer in the Baylor Bears. Give me Baylor. Arizona, Nevada. Arizona is a 2 seed that I've continuously made them get upset in our bracketologies. I could see Nevada doing it, but I am going with 2-seeded Arizona. I think Caleb Love will figure things out for this tournament. Give me the Baylor Bears. All right. Next region here, the Midwest region, Purdue versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee, TCU. Give me Purdue. Another one of these 9 seeds where I could see Purdue falling, but I got TCU. And then McNeese State, Samford would be an interesting matchup that I would get to see. I would be excited to see that one. But I do have a 12 seed here. Moving on, our first double-digit seed in the Sweet 16. We'll see if we have another one, hint, hint. But yeah, I do like McNeese State, so that does set up Purdue with this would be just the classic Purdue loss right there, honestly. But I do have McNeese beating Samford. All right, South Carolina, Creighton, 6 versus a 3. It's an interesting battle. I like South Carolina a lot. Do I like them enough to beat the Blue Jays? I don't think so. I am going to go with Creighton, but it's a very fun matchup. I could see it going South Carolina's way. And then Tennessee, Texas. I do have the Volunteers winning it. So a little bit of a chalky round of 32. Obviously, we have McNeese moving on, but that's just how I see these games kind of playing out. All right, here we got Houston taking on Texas A&M. Give me Houston in that matchup. I know that Houston just got dominated by Iowa State. I do think they can redeem themselves there, though. Give me Houston. But here was my hint. I'm going to go with James Madison, the Dukes, to upset the Duke Blue Devils here. Give me the 30-win James Madison. Moving on, I think if James Madison can beat Wisconsin, they can beat Duke. I think if Wisconsin beats James Madison, I would go with Wisconsin to beat Duke. I mean, I think James Madison's a great team out of the Sun Belt, a red-hot team. I think they make a run. So I'm going to have 2 12 seeds in the Sweet 16 in my bracket predictions. This is March Madness. That's all I have to say to that. But then we got Kentucky versus Texas Tech, 3 versus a 6. Interesting game. Texas Tech is a great defensive team versus Kentucky, but I think the offense for Kentucky will be too much. Texas Tech's coming off a very difficult matchup versus NC State, so I got to go with Kentucky winning it. But then Florida versus Marquette. I'm going to go with Florida pulling off the win. So now we have an SEC battle. I am a believer in the Gators of Florida. If you've been watching my bracketologies, they go on a run. I know they lose bad here. I think they can learn from that loss. Marquette's a team where they're Cormick, I believe is his name, is out right now. Sorry, I was going to search that up. But yeah, Cormick is potentially out if he's playing. I could see it going either way, but I'm honestly just going to stick with it either way. I think I got to go with one of these 2 seeds falling. Marquette, they did go on a great run in the Big East, but I'm still not sold on them. Give me Florida. Moving on. All right, UConn versus Northwestern. I got to go with the number 1 overall seed, UConn. So we do have all number 1 seeds moving on here. Then San Diego State, Auburn. Give me the Tigers. We got a lot of big or SEC teams in this Sweet 16 here. Then BYU, Illinois, 3-seeded Fighting Illini. I'm going to go with the 6/3 here, though. Call it biased, but I have faith that my BYU Cougars get red hot for this tournament. If they are on, they are virtually unstoppable in the actual when they're playing teams. You know, if you look at Illinois, they just go on a tremendous run. Shannon Sharp is a great player, but I think I'm just going to put all my faith in my Cougars. I like I say, if they're on, I think they're very difficult to stop. So I am going to go with BYU moving on to the Sweet 16. Hopefully they don't blow this up in my face and lose to Duquesne in the first round. But give me my Cougars. All right, Drake, Iowa State, 2 versus a 10. As much as I like the Drake Bulldogs, I think they do lose to the Cyclones of Iowa State. All right, now we are in the Sweet 16. UConn taking on Auburn. We got the defending champions falling, I think, to the Auburn Tigers. I'm going with Auburn here, pulling off the win. This is no discredit to UConn. They are continuing to play dominant. This is more of my putting my faith in Auburn. And number 1 overall seeds tend to not win NCAA tournaments. It's been a while since that's happened. Also, teams that the reigning champions also seem to lose early, like in round of 32 early. They don't seem to make it past that round. I think they do get past it, but I do think they fall to the Auburn Tigers. And then we got BYU taking on Iowa State. As much as I would like to continue to make a run for my BYU Cougars, it's a tough matchup for Iowa State in the actual NCAA tournament. I will give them credit, though. But Iowa State, they're playing great basketball. I think they will win this one, but I'm going to call it. I think this game is a close one. If it happens, of course. It'll be a big if because that's a very tough game for BYU versus Illinois. All right, Houston taking on James Madison. As much as I want to continue James Madison's run, I do think it comes to an end versus the Cougars. 2, common theme here. Big 12 and SEC continuing to move on in my bracket. I'm a believer in these 2 conferences. But then Kentucky, Florida. I'm going to send the 7-seed Florida Gators making a run here, beating Kentucky here. Big time. Florida, great team, great offensive team. I think they learn from the Auburn loss and go on a run. All right, here we got Purdue taking on McNeese State. Like I said, this would be the most iconic Purdue loss in the actual NCAA tournament. If they make it to the Sweet 16, then lose to a double-digit seed. I'm not going to have it happen, though. I do have number 1 seed, Purdue winning it. All right, Creighton, Tennessee, 3 versus a 2. Give me the Volunteers of Tennessee. I know they laid an egg in the SEC tournament. I do realize all this, but Tennessee is still a great team. They got a great defense. Dalton Knecht, if he is playing good, I think he rises to the occasion and wins it, which sets up a great Elite Eight matchup between Purdue and Tennessee. All right, North Carolina, St. Mary's. Tar Heels taking on the St. Mary's out of West Coast Conference. I do think North Carolina wins that one. North Carolina, still a very good team. I know they just lose to NC State, but I do find value in that. I think they will learn from that loss. And then we got Baylor taking on Arizona. Give me the 3-seeded Baylor Bears beating the Arizona Wildcats. So our Elite Eights here, we got a lot of Big 12 teams and a lot of SEC teams. I believe there's only 2 other conferences with North Carolina and Baylor. North Carolina and Tennessee. Purdue. Guys, sorry. I'm tripping over my words here. But North Carolina, Baylor for a spot in the national championship. Give me the Bears. I know the Baylor Bears struggle to beat who was it? I know they struggled to beat Iowa State, but Iowa State's a very good team. Still a firm believer in Baylor. one of these teams that I'm just gut feeling all year that they're going to go on a run. I think they do go on this run. Then Purdue, Tennessee, 1 versus a 2. I'm going to go with another upset. Zach Edey's year will not be this time. I think Dalton Knecht gets the better of Purdue. Good defensive matchup. Give me the Volunteers. So we do have those 2 number 1 seeds falling. We got a 3 seed and a 2 seed so far in the Final Four. Then we got a 1 seed taking on a 7. Big 12 versus SEC. Houston or Florida's run, I do believe, comes to an end, losing to Houston in the Elite Eight. So Florida's kind of my dark horse team to make a run, but I think it comes to an end. All right, Auburn versus Iowa State, 4 versus a 2. Man, this is probably my toughest matchup here. I mean, Tennessee Purdue is a great matchup as well, but I really think both these teams are Final Four caliber teams here. I think I'm gonna go with. I think my gut is saying Auburn wins this one. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut in the actual NCAA tournament. This would be a great matchup, like I'm saying. And guys, just because I picked these in these brackets doesn't mean I might just switch these up. I'm going to try and stick with my picks, but it's obviously early. We'll see as the news comes in with some of these other teams. But I just believe in Auburn. They go on a tremendous run in the SEC tournament to move on here. Auburn's a great team, man. I think if they can beat UConn, they can beat Iowa State. So give me Auburn beating Iowa State. So our Final Four here, we got some great teams here. I think I did a great job mixing things up. We got 1 seed Houston, a 2 seed in Tennessee, 3 seed in Baylor, 4 seed Auburn. So we got 2 Big 12 teams and 2 SEC teams. Here we go. Auburn, Baylor for a spot in the Final Four. I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers beating Baylor, making it to this championship game. Great team here in Auburn. Got snubbed on seeding. They're going to have to go through a lot of good teams, but I think they can do it. Give me Auburn. Houston versus Tennessee. 1 versus a 2. The Volunteers are a Final Four caliber team, but I don't think are on quite the level as a Houston Cougars team. I know Houston just, like I said, got lost pretty bad, but it's still a great Houston team. So our national championship is a 1 seed in Houston, 4 seed in Auburn. I do have a number 1 seed winning it all. I'm going to go with the Houston Cougars this year in their first year in the Big 12. I think it is their first national championship here. Auburn, keep an eye out for them as well, though. They could for sure win it, but I am going with Houston. All right, guys, it is very exciting. Total combined points. I think this one would be a lower scoring game. I'm going to go with like 102 between that's pretty low scoring. I'm going to go with like 107 or something like that. All right, but anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video today. Comment down below your predictions. Houston this year is going to be my champion. Could see it a lot of teams, though, even UConn going down. They could go back to back, obviously, as the number 1 overall seed. You got the Volunteers of Tennessee, who I'm a big-time believer in. I think if they can beat Houston, they can play Auburn and win it between an SEC and an SEC all-time matchup there. But I'm going to go with Houston. Sometimes you just got to trust your guts in these tournaments. Houston's my pick. All right, anyway, guys, comment down below your predictions. Anyway, peace out.